The Wizard of Oz. Quest for the Wicked Witch. After a good night's sleep in Oz's palace, the travellers were ready to set out on their search for the land of the Winkies and the Wicked Witch of the West. The guardian of the gates unlocked their spectacles and put them back in his box. Then he opened the gate of the Emerald City. "Which road leads to the Wicked Witch of the West?" asked Dorothy.
"No road leads to the Wicked Witch,"
replied the guardian of the gates.
"for no one ever wishes to go that way.
"Well, how then are we to find her?"
If you keep walking towards the west where the sun sets, the Wicked Witch will find you. She made the Winkies her slaves, and she will want to make you her slaves, so take care."
With these words ringing in their ears, the friends turned towards the west. Dorothy still wore the pretty silk dress she put on in the palace, but to her amazement, now it was pure white. She and her friends walked as fast as they could, and soon left the Emerald City far behind. Now the Wicked Witch of the West had only one eye, but that eye was as powerful as a telescope and could see everywhere. So as she sat at a window of her yellow castle, she looked round and saw the travellers a long way off. She was so angry to see them that she blew on a silver whistle and summoned a great pack of wolves.
"There are strangers in my land. They are not even fit to be my slaves. So I order you to tear them into little pieces."
The wolves dashed away at full speed. It was lucky that the Tin Man was wide awake and heard them coming. He seized his sharp axe and chopped off the head of the leading wolf as it leapt towards him. Then he swung his axe again and again until 40 wolves all lay dead in a heap before him. The next morning, Dorothy shivered with fright when she saw the great pile of shaggy wolves, and the Wicked Witch became angrier than ever when she looked out and saw the strangers were still alive. Then she blew on her silver whistle and summoned a great flock of wild crows.
"Fly at once to the strangers, pick out their eyes, and tear them into little pieces!"
she screamed. As soon as the Scarecrow saw the crows flying towards him, he told his friends to lie down. He then stretched out his arms, caught hold of the leading crow, and twisted its neck until it died. He did this to the next crow, and the crow after that, until at last the whole flock of 40 crows lay dead at his feet. When the Wicked Witch saw this, she went into a terrible rage. She called a dozen of her Winky slaves, gave them sharp spears, and told them to destroy the strangers. But the yellow Winkies were not brave people. When they marched up to the travellers, the lion gave such a great roar that they ran straight back to the castle. The witch was so angry that she stamped her feet, tore her hair, and gnashed her teeth. There was now only one thing she could do. She must use the golden cap to summon the winged monkeys. She put the cap on her head and chanted,
"Epi-pepi-kaki, zizzy, zazzy, zeek!"
There was a low rumbling sound, a rushing of many wings, a great chattering and laughing. And then, out of the sky, came a crowd of monkeys, each with an immense pair of powerful wings. Their leader, who was much bigger than the rest, said,
"This is the third time you have used the golden cap. Whoever owns the cap can summon us 3 times and give us any order they please. We will always obey. But remember, no one can summon us more than 3 times. Why should I need you again?" snarled the witch. "You have helped to make the Winkies my slaves and driven the great Oz out of my land. My third and last order is that you should destroy the strangers in my land, all except the lion. I want you to bring him to me so that I can harness him like a horse and make him work for me." Your command shall be obeyed,
said the leader. And then the winged monkeys flew to Dorothy and her friends. Some seized the Tin Man and dropped him from a great height onto some sharp rocks. Here he lay, so battered and dented that he couldn't move. Others caught the Scarecrow and pulled out all his straw. Then they made his clothes into a small bundle and threw it into the topmost branches of a tall tree. The remaining monkeys wound so many pieces of stout rope around the lion that it was soon impossible for him to struggle. They lifted him up and flew away with him to the castle, where he was placed in a small yard surrounded by a high iron fence. But they did no harm to Dorothy. The leader of the winged monkeys flew up to her, grinning terribly. But when he saw the mark of the good witch's kiss on her forehead, he stopped short.
We dare not harm this little girl, nor the dog she carries in her arms,
he said. So very gently, he picked up Dorothy and Toto and carried them to the castle. The Wicked Witch was both surprised and worried when she saw the mark on Dorothy's forehead, and she trembled with fear when she looked down at Dorothy's feet and saw the silver shoes. It was only when she looked into Dorothy's eyes that she felt safe again.
The child obviously doesn't know what wonderful power the shoes give her, she thought. I can still make her my slave.
And with a happy cackle, she led Dorothy to the kitchen and ordered her to clean the pots and pans. In the days that followed, Dorothy had to work very hard. She lived in fear of being beaten, but in fact, the witch did not dare strike her because of the mark on her forehead. Apart from Toto, Dorothy's only friend was the lion. Each night she crept down to the yard where he was imprisoned and lay down beside him. She put her head on his soft, shaggy mane, and together they tried to plan their escape. Now the Wicked Witch longed to have Dorothy's silver shoes and all the power that went with them. So one day she played a nasty trick on her. She put an iron bar in the middle of the kitchen floor and then made it invisible. When Dorothy next walked across the room, she didn't realize it was there and fell right over it. In her fall, one of the silver shoes came off, and with a cry of triumph, the Wicked Witch snatched it up.
Give me back my shoe,
Dorothy yelled.
Certainly not,
laughed the witch.
I shall keep it, and someday I shall get the other one from you too.
This made Dorothy so angry that she picked up her bucket of water and threw it over the witch. The wicked woman gave a loud screech of fear, and then, as Dorothy looked at her in wonder, she began to shrink and fall away.
See what you've done!
She screamed.
Didn't you know that water would be the end of me? In a minute, I shall be all melted away. Look out! Here I go!
With these words, the witch fell down in a brown, shapeless mass and began to spread over the floor. Seeing that she really had melted away, Dorothy snatched up the silver shoe and ran to tell the lion. The lion was overjoyed to hear Dorothy's news. So too were the Winkies. When Dorothy told them they were no longer slaves, they happily agreed to help her find the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. A group of them travelled all that day and part of the next, until they came to the rocky plain where the Tin Man lay, all battered and bent. They lifted him gently onto a stretcher and carried him back to the castle. Here the tinsmiths hammered and twisted, soldered and polished, until the Tin Man was his old self again. He had a few patches, it's true, but he also had a new golden handle for his axe. He was so pleased that he wept tears of joy, which Dorothy had to wipe away before they rusted his joints. The next day, Dorothy and her friends led a search party for the Scarecrow. At last, they spotted his clothes at the top of a tall tree, which was impossible to climb. So the Tin Man chopped it down and Dorothy took the clothes from the branches. She carried them back to the castle, stuffed them with nice clean straw, and there was the Scarecrow as good as ever, thanking them over and over again for saving him. The friends spent several happy days at the castle, but Dorothy could not forget her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry and her home in Kansas. So one day she said, "We must go back to Oz and remind him of his promise to help us if we destroyed the Wicked Witch." Her friends all agreed. The next day they would say goodbye to the Winkies and then set out again for the Emerald City.